There is one single, deeply buried truth that a narcissist will spend their entire existence trying to keep from you. They will deploy every weapon in their psychological arsenal, switching seamlessly between dazzling charm, explosive rage, icy silence, or perfectly timed, convenient tears, just to keep this one secret safe. The secret is that they are not afraid of your anger. They do not fear your screaming matches, your heartbroken tears, or your late-night threats to pack your bags and leave forever. In fact, they thrive on it. They have navigated those emotional storms 100 times before, and to them, your distress is proof that they still hold the remote control to your emotions. What actually terrifies them, what sends a shockwave through the dark, fragile architecture of their mind, is the precise moment you completely stop reacting. The exact instant your eyes stop begging them for closure, validation, or an apology, the entire dynamic shifts. When you stop participating in the chaos and simply start observing it, their grand illusion instantly collapses. The manipulation engine they built to drain your spirit suddenly runs completely out of fuel because it realizes it is staring at a person it can no longer manipulate, trigger, or consume. When you become a calm observer instead of a frantic participant, you strip away their perceived armor. This sudden loss of emotional leverage forces the narcissist to enter a state of absolute desperation, causing them to act out in highly specific, unhinged ways that most people never fully understand. This brings us to the first major shift, the intense panic that they desperately disguise as power. What most people completely miss when dealing with these individuals is that narcissists do not operate on normal human emotions like love, empathy, or even genuine hatred. They operate entirely on control. Control is their oxygen, their fuel, and the only thing that temporarily quietens the unbearable, hollow emptiness that echoes inside them. To secure this control, they didn't just casually get to know you, they systematically studied you. They meticulously mapped out your deepest insecurities, your childhood wounds, your loneliness, and your innate need to be understood and valued. They gathered this data so they could perfectly position themselves as the ultimate answer to everything you ever felt you lacked. That initial phase that felt so magical and soul-defining wasn't love at all. It was highly calculated, tactical reconnaissance. They were mapping the vulnerabilities of your soul, not to cherish it, but to use it as a weapon against you later on. But the moment you begin to heal and regain your self-worth, that elaborate psychological map they drew becomes completely useless. When they sense that their mental and emotional grip is loosening, they don't possess the self-awareness to pause, reflect, or apologize. Instead, they plunge into a blind existential panic. Because they cannot show weakness, that internal panic immediately manifests as sudden, aggressive behavioral whiplash designed to throw you completely off balance. One day they are ice cold and treating you like a total stranger, and the next they are flooding you with intense, unasked-for affection to confuse your senses. They will intentionally spark massive arguments out of absolutely nothing, dragging up old, deeply personal secrets you shared in confidence just to cut you down. They will literally rewrite historical facts right in front of your face with absolute conviction, fully expecting you to flinch, doubt your own sanity, and fold back into the small, submissive shape they originally carved out for you. When you refuse to play along, when you stand completely still and keep your eyes calm, something inside them fundamentally unravels. Their entire manufactured identity depends entirely on your compliance and your emotional reaction to exist. Without your reaction to mirror them, they feel like they are dissolving into nothingness. They are not strong, powerful individuals pretending to be weak. They are deeply terrified, wounded children wearing a massive, cruel costume, pretending to be gods. Before we dive any deeper into this psychological breakdown, do one important thing for yourself today. If you have ever felt completely drained, gaslit, or emotionally hollowed out by someone who claimed they loved you, subscribe to this channel right now. Don't do it for me. Do it for yourself as a boundary. Because what we are about to break down next is going to completely change how you view every single narcissist you have ever crossed paths with. When a narcissist finally realizes that their psychological hold over you is slipping away for good, they don't just walk away quietly. Instead, their entire behavior shifts into a highly predictable, desperate pattern. They move through 4 distinct escalating stages as they try to claw back the power they used to have over your mind. Because you are no longer feeding their ego with your reactions, their tactics become much louder, much darker, and incredibly intense. If you know exactly what these stages look like, you can watch them play out like a scripted movie without getting caught up in the drama. Sign 1. Irrational rage. The first definitive sign that you are winning back your freedom is the sudden arrival of irrational rage. It is crucial to understand that this is not normal, everyday human anger. This is a wildly disproportionate, volcanic explosion that erupts over absolutely nothing. It happens over a minor delay in a text reply, a calm and polite boundary you set, or simply because you didn't laugh at one of their jokes. You will find yourself staring at them, completely baffled by how a tiny, insignificant moment sparked a nuclear reaction. This terrifying explosion has absolutely nothing to do with what you actually did. It is entirely about what you refused to give them in that moment. You did not give them the fear they expected. You did not offer up immediate submission, and you did not hand over the emotional reaction they are used to extracting from you. When you stand your ground and remain calm, their ego feels completely exposed. Their internal logic dictates that if their charm can no longer trick you into compliance, then raw intimidation must be used to force you back into line. It is a desperate, aggressive attempt to make you flinch, shake, and apologize just to make the screaming stop. Sign 2. Dramatic withdrawal. If their rage fails to break your composure, the narcissist will instantly pivot to their next tactic, dramatic withdrawal. This is where they deploy the heavy machinery of the silent treatment, the ice-cold shoulder, or the completely blank, dead-eyed stare across the room. To anyone else, this behavior looks like absolute indifference, as if they suddenly couldn't care less about your existence. But beneath that cold exterior, what is happening inside their mind is the exact opposite of calm. This silence is a calculated, active psychological punishment. They are using their absence as a weapon to test your emotional stability. They are banking on the hope that your old, unhealed wounds, your fear of rejection, your dread of abandonment, and your deep need to feel chosen will trigger a panic attack inside you. They are waiting for the silence to become so heavy and agonizing that you will eventually break, run after them, and beg for forgiveness on your knees just to restore the connection. If you stay completely grounded, if you refuse to chase them, and if you do not break the silence first, you inflict a devastating wound on their ego. You show them the one thing they cannot tolerate, that their absence does not destroy you, and that your peace of mind is no longer dependent on their presence. Sign 3. Theatrical blame shifting. When the silence fails to make you chase them, the narcissist will suddenly break their own quiet with theatrical blame shifting. This stage is so over the top it feels like a bad piece of fiction, yet they will deliver it with absolute conviction. Overnight, every single problem, breakdown, and historical issue in the relationship becomes entirely your fault. They will confidently look you in the eye and tell you that every cruel word that left their mouth was only said because you provoked them. They will claim every lie they told was necessary because you didn't trust them enough, and every act of betrayal happened because you failed to love them the right way. You need to recognize that this is not a normal relationship argument or a simple disagreement. This is a highly deliberate psychological operation. The narcissist is actively trying to rewrite reality to reinstall the old emotional software of guilt, shame, and intense self-doubt directly back into your mind. They know that if they can make you internalize the blame, you will automatically start second-guessing your own memory and perception. They need that background software of guilt running constantly, because without it, you become entirely unreachable, completely unbreakable, and genuinely free. And a free person they can no longer control is the one thing they cannot allow to exist in their universe. Sign 4. The smear campaign. The fourth and final sign of a narcissist completely losing control is the launch of a vicious smear campaign. The moment they realize that all of their internal one-on-one manipulation tactics have utterly failed to bend you to their will, they turn outward to the rest of the world. They will systematically begin to talk about you behind your back to your mutual friends, your family members, your co-workers, and sometimes even your own children. They will meticulously spin a narrative where they are the long-suffering victim, painting you as crazy, unstable, cold, deeply selfish, and ungrateful. They flip the script so cleanly and with such apparent heartbreak that even people who have known and loved you for years might begin to look at you with confusion and doubt. Most victims view this as a direct assault on their reputation, but it is actually something much more desperate. The smear campaign is an attempt to rebuild the walls of your cage from the outside. The narcissist is terrified of you telling the truth, so they preemptively destroy your credibility. More than that, they secretly hope that if they can successfully convince the entire world that you are the toxic problem, they can eventually use that collective pressure to convince you of it too. The smear campaign is never a sign of their power. It is the desperate, frantic roar of a predator that knows its prey has permanently escaped the trap. To understand why they are unraveling, you have to understand the single most threatening, terrifying force in a narcissist's entire existence. It isn't you physically packing your bags and leaving. It isn't them losing money, and it isn't a drop in their social status. The thing that strikes pure existential dread into their soul is your total emotional independence. This is the simple, devastating fact that you no longer require their permission, their validation, or their approval to feel okay about yourself. A narcissist is a psychological parasite that feeds on your emotional reactions. The very second you stop looking to them to define your worth, you effectively cut the life support cord through which they were draining you. Your intentional healing is their literal starvation. Your hard-won internal peace is their psychological famine. Your newfound self-respect exiles them from the only part of your mind they cared about dominating. They never wanted you to get well. They desperately needed you dependent, broken, and perpetually reactive. This absolute dread of your independence is precisely why the concept of a boundary completely terrifies them. Most people think boundaries are built to act as heavy walls to keep others out. But when it comes to a narcissist, boundaries actually function as mirrors. Every single time you calmly set a firm boundary, you are inadvertently forcing them to look directly into a mirror that reflects their own hollow, empty center. It abruptly forces them to confront the reality that you are an entirely separate human being with your own soul, your own mind, and a sovereign center that exists completely outside of their control and is not theirs to command. This is completely unbearable for them because in their deeply distorted internal universe, you do not exist as an independent person. You exist merely as a tool, a function designed to regulate their shifting emotions and pump them full of admiration. When that tool suddenly stands up and says no, the narcissist experiences it as a betrayal of cosmic proportions. This is why they react to a gentle, healthy boundary with the sheer, explosive intensity that most normal people reserve for physical violence. To their fragile ego, your no is an act of war because it threatens the destruction of their entire manufactured universe. But once you finally see this dynamic for what it truly is, you enter the next phase where the script is permanently flipped. It is a psychological threshold that once crossed ensures you can never unsee the truth again. The towering, terrifying giant you spent months or even years walking on eggshells around suddenly undergoes a pathetic transformation right before your eyes. They instantly shrink into exactly what they have always been, a highly frightened, deeply insecure person screaming at the top of their lungs inside a loud, intimidating costume. You begin to realize that their terrifying rage was never a display of strength. It was just a temper tantrum born of pure panic. Their cold, punishing silence wasn't a show of power. It was a weak admission of fear. Even their malicious smear campaign loses its venom because you recognize it as nothing more than the desperate, frantic sound of a predator completely losing its grip on its prey. Their absolute deepest fear is not the threat of you walking away. It is being forced to face the powerful, evolved version of you that is currently standing in front of them. The old version of you was highly predictable to them. That version doubted its own memory, apologized instantly just to keep the peace, gave way too much of its own energy, forgave the unforgivable, and stayed in the trap far too long. But this brand new version of you walks through the world calmly, speaks with absolute clarity, sets unyielding boundaries without carrying an ounce of guilt, and unapologetically chooses personal peace over manufactured chaos. This evolved version of you is an absolute stranger to them. They have no idea how to interact with this person because old emotional weapons only work on old, unhealed versions of you. The new you has completely rewritten the psychological rules of engagement, and the narcissist simply cannot read or speak your new language. This is the exact reason why your deep personal healing is the ultimate threat to their existence. You cannot fix a narcissist, and you cannot break them using normal methods like revenge, public exposure, or sudden abandonment. They are master spin doctors. They can easily twist your revenge into a narrative about your inherent cruelty, reframe your attempts to expose them as proof of your bitter obsession, and rewrite your abandonment as their own glorious freedom from you. But the one thing they cannot touch, spin, or argue with is your genuine healing. A truly healed person functions as a completely sealed, locked door. A healed person does not engage in the back and forth arguments, does not chase after the ghost of what was, does not beg for a change of heart, and absolutely refuses to perform or explain themselves to someone committed to misunderstanding them. A healed person simply chooses to live their life in quiet truth. And nothing in this world will ever haunt a narcissist more than being forced to sit in their own emptiness and watch the very person they tried to systematically destroy walk into a beautiful, peaceful life that they themselves are fundamentally incapable of building. This marks the beginning of what can only be described as your quiet revolution. From this moment forward, your absolute ultimate weapon is not a loud, aggressive confrontation, but a deep, unshakable internal self-respect. This is the kind of quiet self-respect that doesn't need to be announced, yelled, or proven to anyone. It is a steady, silent core that simply refuses to bend. The very second you decide to completely trust your own reality, your own memory, and your own perception of the truth, the entire game changes. Suddenly, their most sophisticated psychological weapons lose all their power. Gaslighting completely loses its grip. It literally bounces right off you because you no longer look to them to validate what you know you saw and felt. Cheap, manipulative flattery no longer moves you because your sense of self-worth is no longer borrowed from their shifting words. Even their darkest, most desperate threats fail to shake your foundation because you have already conquered the fear of losing a relationship that was actively destroying your soul. This quiet self-respect makes you completely unreachable in all the hidden psychological places where the narcissist used to walk freely and cause havoc. To truly step into this power, you have to completely deconstruct the biggest lie you've been told about this entire experience. You need to understand with absolute clarity that you were never targeted because you were weak, stupid, or broken. You were targeted because you were luminous. You were targeted because you possessed an abundance of genuine warmth, deep empathy, unwavering loyalty, and a vibrant, beautiful soul. The exact human qualities that a narcissist is fundamentally incapable of generating on their own. They didn't look at you and see an easy victim. They looked at you and saw a powerhouse of emotional energy. They are psychological scavengers, and they came into your life not to build, share, or give, but to systematically harvest the light they lacked. They wanted to plug into your spirit, drain your joy, and mimic your depth because their own internal world is an empty, frozen wasteland. The exact day you realize that you were always the actual source of the light they were desperately trying to steal, a massive, permanent shift occurs inside your mind. The fog completely clears. You instantly stop viewing yourself as a helpless casualty of their clever games, and you start seeing yourself as the powerful survivor who outlasted a predator. When you look back at their chaotic behavior now, when they throw an irrational tantrum, hide behind a punishing wall of silence, or look you dead in the eye and tell a blatant lie, you no longer see a powerful manipulator creating chaos. You see a frantic confession. You see a broken, desperate psychology, realizing that the lease on your personal power has officially expired and they have been completely evicted from your mind. Because you finally see the truth, you realize you don't need to stage a massive confrontation. You don't need to expose them to the world, and you absolutely don't need to win an argument that they will never have the maturity to let you win. Your victory doesn't require their acknowledgement. Instead, your only job is to just keep choosing your own peace every single hour of every single day. Every morning you wake up and refuse to shrink yourself to make them feel big. Every time you choose stability over their manufactured drama, you are achieving something 1,000 times greater and more devastating than any petty revenge could ever deliver. You are becoming the one thing a narcissist can never be, and the one thing they can never take away from you again. Truly, deeply, and soulfully free. And once you taste that genuine freedom, it can never be unlearned. If even one single sentence of this breakdown landed deep inside your spirit today, do not let this moment just pass by without fully honoring it. Take an intentional second right now to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and leave a comment below sharing just one single word that accurately describes how you feel in your soul right now. Always remember that your healing journey is not some hidden, private event you should be ashamed of. It is a glorious, quiet revolution. Keep choosing yourself, keep guarding your energy, and refuse to look back. The powerful, unshakable version of you waiting on the other side of this healing is so much closer than you think. Take a deep breath, let the past go, and step directly into your power. The world has been waiting for you to finally come home to yourself.